I'll record everything. I've just put it on record. Prior to that, it wasn't on record. So, welcome everyone to Agenda Meeting 1329, held here at the Roseville Club, little after 1:30 p.m. on Sunday the 13th of August. We have apologies from David Mee, Matthew Lloyd, Tony Hoare, Les Carlisle, Ron Bolden, Joe Detley, and Maury Brad. Are there any other apologies? Do you know what happened to John Manukas? I noticed he wasn't there. No? Oh, we'll give his apology as well. And I was hoping our newest member, John Brandt, will be here, but he hasn't turned up yet. The next month meeting is on the 10th of September here at the Roseville Club, and we have our AGM, and the topic is coronations. So do bring along anything related to coronations. Paul, when are you heading back to?
Soon after that meeting.
So you'll be at that meeting?
That's the final one. Yeah.
Right. There. We have an ANDA money fair.
No, I mean,
Yes. ANDA money fair on Saturday the 21st and Sunday the 22nd. I have been contacted by the organizer, and he would love us to take a table again like they give us before, and if we could help out manning the front door, getting the donation and giving out the little pamphlet that they give out. So there's 2 days. It's either Saturday or Sunday or both days. Saturday, the fair opens at 10 a.m. on both days, but we get in a bit earlier to set up. And it closes at 4 p.m. on the Saturday and 3 p.m. on the Sunday. So put it in your diaries, and I hope everyone can join us down there as well. I'm started producing auction 53. The first lots are in, but I have until more or less the end of September to add the next 200 odd lots, or 170 odd lots to go. And that brings us to today. The topic today is Australian decimal banknotes. And since I had a collection of them that's pretty well set out, I thought I'd give the opening talk and everyone else can add their star notes and things that I don't have. Collecting Australian decimal banknotes. This is the front page of a display I put out probably about 4 years ago or 5 years ago at Hurstville at a stamp and coin fair that they held. I put this out as a non-exhibit. There were about 500 frames of stamps and things that were being judged, and I said, okay, I will do one for banknotes, but it's not being competitive. This is just a general explanation to try and convert some of the people who collect stamps to collecting banknotes. After all, it's still printed paper. There. So, Australia went decimal on the 14th of February 1966. I don't know if you guys remember the jingles that went on, but the last two lines was on the 14th of February 1966. But out go the pennies, out go the pounds, or something like that. Yeah. And so on that day, 4 new banknotes were issued, and they were issued to replace the 4 banknotes that were in circulation. So the 10 shilling, £1, £5 and £10 notes were in circulation. The 10 shilling became the dollar, the £1 became the $2, £5 the $10, and the £10 the $20. At the time of changeover, there were the usual 2 official signatures on the note. The Governor of the Reserve Bank and the Secretary of the Treasury. The Governor of the Reserve Bank on the preceding notes was H.C. Coombs. And H.C. Coombs, previous to the Reserve Bank being made, was the governor of the Commonwealth Bank. It was the Commonwealth Bank that looked after all the money. And so Coombs became governor of the Reserve Bank. And the other gentleman was Sir Rowland Wilson. It was just Rowland Wilson at that time. The $5 note was issued in 1967, a year later. And that was done deliberately because there wasn't a £2.5 note. No, there wasn't a note that it replaced. So it said, we don't want to confuse everyone. We'll just keep the same 4 notes, and 10 shillings becomes the dollar, which more or less followed the color, and they followed more or less the color patterns. There's, like collecting coins, there's no correct or incorrect way of collecting. You collect however you like to collect. And collectors collect in several different ways. Some people collect by type, meaning that they want one of each type of note that was issued. Just one. And collecting by type is a lot easier than collecting by dates, because if you collect by dates, there's always some hard dates. Collecting by type, especially coins, you can get a really nice coin in an easy type in high condition that's not going to break the bank. So collecting by type is quite a good way to collect. But others, like me, collect by signature. They want one of each note of each signature combination. And that can become difficult, especially in high values, because high values cost you a lot of money, and condition, of course. There's other people who collect by numbers. They want full block numbers, or they want what they call the radar numbers, which is the number going up and then going back the same way, like the 234432. That's a radar number. And if you collect like that, you're always going to be paying a premium on those items. Also, some people collect by star notes. Star notes are a replacement note. When the notes are printed or damaged, they are replaced with a note that has an asterisk at the end of the number. So you get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 asterisk. And star notes are rare. There's not that many. And they're pricey, especially in condition. So people also collect by prefixes. So they want the AAA, AAB, AAC, etc. of the notes. And that can be difficult, especially when there's lots of notes. You know, trying to get. I've been putting the notes together, trying to collect by these serial prefixes. Oh God, I'm mad. And it is not easy. And especially now, paper notes aren't around anymore, so it's even more difficult. There are people, going further down, who like to collect what they consider the first and the last prefixes. First and last. As far as I'm concerned, the first prefix is as hard to get as the second prefix, and every other prefix, because they're all made together. Collecting Australian decimal notes, the hardest note to get is the 1966 combination of Coombs-Randall. The Coombs-Randall notes were only issued for 2 years. And because the Coombs-Wilson 1966 notes had to replace the pound notes and pounds and shilling notes that were earlier, there were many of them made. They had to more or less make the same number of notes that had been issued to replace it one by one. And as the notes went back to the bank, they were not issued out again. The new decimal notes took their place. So very quickly within the first year, the cutover was pretty rapid. And so they had made a lot of the Coombs-Wilson notes, but they're still a hard note to get in circulation, in uncirculated condition, because they were 66 and we've been using them for years. So it is difficult. But the Coombs-Randall note is even harder because they were only issued for a year. The $5 note came in 67, and the others came in as required later on. And as a result, they were only there for a very short time, and there weren't that many issued because they only replaced notes when the demand is there, and they had so many Coombs-Wilson, there was no demand. They had good stocks of Coombs-Wilson. So Coombs-Randall, in all values, is one of the hardest notes to get, especially in nice condition. So I'll be talking a bit later on Coombs-Randall, but we then go back to Coombs-Wilson, H.C. Coombs and Sir Rowland Wilson. Coombs-Wilson were signatories from 1952. The two of them came together on the George VI notes, 1952. And they were still on the notes and cut over in 66. So that's 14 years to have that signature combination. I'm not sure if it was the longest one, but I think it probably was. And they had a lot of change in their time because shortly after they were on, the king died, and we got the new notes. But just as an example, there. So that's a first, the early ones, 62. After King George VI died, we got the 10 shilling notes that came in. So this is pre-decimal. These are the pre-decimal notes. So this was the note that the dollar note replaced. Coombs-Wilson. And then you got the pound note. You can't see very well there, but you can see H.C. Coombs is Governor of the Commonwealth Bank of Australia. And on that one, he's the Governor of the Reserve Bank of Australia. The Reserve Bank was created in 59, but the notes were issued in 60. So probably from 53 to 59 were Commonwealth Bank, and from 60 to 66 was the Reserve Bank. Then we come to the changeover. So you can see the Coombs-Wilson on the 10 shilling was replaced by Coombs-Wilson on the $1. The colours were very similar, so the sort of orange and sort of brown was on both notes to make it easy for people, so they didn't get confused of which was which. The same happened on the £1. So you can see it's sort of green and black, and there's green and black. So Coombs-Wilson, Coombs-Randall. These were the other two notes that were in during the period of the Queen Elizabeth notes. That was the £5 note, which became the $10, and that was the £10 note, which became the $20 note. All quite nice notes. So then we'll go to the notes, to the signatures. So at the changeover, the £5 was replaced by the 10, and the £10 was replaced by the $20 notes, and these were the new notes that came in. So these are Coombs Wilson signatures. They're the fairly easy one to get. This is the harder lot. These are the Coombs Randall signatures. And you can see the prefixes on the Coombs Randall went from, I didn't put the prefixes on that. No. The prefixes of the Coombs Randall were AAE to AHY. The Coombs Wilson was AAA to AGE. The $2 was such. This was the first set of prefixes for the $50 note. So it started off with NAA, went to NNC. But when you go up to the $20, the prefixes went XBQ to XBS. So that's only 3 different prefixes with 1 million notes in each prefix. That was 3 million notes. Now, in those days, $20 was $2 wages. So, sorry, 2 days' wages. So that was a lot of money. And even though I collected notes in those days, every time I got nice clean notes in my pay packet, I put them aside. But I never put a $10 or a $20 note aside. It was just worth too much. And I had this nice little tin next to my bed with these new notes in. Every time I got another nice one, it went in there. I mean, I could persuade myself to put $1 or $2 in, maybe the odd 5 in there, but nothing else. And one day I can remember getting back from work, and I got my pay packet, and I had this lovely new, I don't know if it was $1 or $2 bill, which was going to go in there. I opened the tin, and there was a dirty $20 note sitting there. And my jaw dropped, and I said to my wife, "What happened? What's this?" And she said the taxi driver didn't have any change. All my beautiful notes disappeared. And today, when I think of it, it still brings a sort of... But that's the way it goes.
You didn't say that night.
What can you do? It's done. Tony Hoare tells a very similar story, that he collected 5 threepence and sixpence coins, and he had a whole jar of them, and he went to England, and he was in England for a few years, and when he came back he was going to look for his coins, and he said to his mum, "Where are the coins?" And she said, "Oh, I banked them for you, love." Ouch. Anyway, these are the Coombs Randall 5 and 10. I have always wanted a Coombs Randall $20 note. And in the last Nobles auction, I finally got one. Hooray! I finally got my Coombs Randall 20 note. It's one that was slabbed, but that's fine because the condition was right and the price was right. So I was very happy with it. I had tried to go for another lot, but it went way beyond what I did, so that was the end of that. But just looking at that one again, In the Australian decimal series for ordinary notes, that is the key note to get. You have to get that Coombs-Randall 20. Next signatory is Phillips. So in July 68, J.G. Phillips replaced H.C. Coombs as governor of the Reserve Bank. And the Phillips-Randall signature combination over that 3-year period, you see the ones, twos, all this information is in the Renix catalogue, so you can get that there. So there's the signatures for the Phillips-Randalls on a $1 and a $5 note. When I worked at Qantas in those days, I was still working in reservations in Hunter Street, 70 Hunter Street, and I used to occasionally get the ferry in with a young lad who was also called John Phillips, and his father was the governor of the Reserve Bank. The next signature combination is when Randall was replaced by Wheeler. And so you have your Phillips-Wheeler signature combination. And during this period, the Commonwealth of Australia was replaced by just plain Australia on the notes. So in all that period, early periods, we had Commonwealth, and then it just changed to Australia. There was a goodly number of both notes. And also, the $50 note was introduced in 73. So we have two different lots of notes, and also the $50 note starts coming in. So you can see inflation is starting to work its way through. So 73, so 66 to 73, that wasn't a long time, so it must have been a fair bit of inflation in that period. Okay, in 76, Phillips was replaced by H.M. Knight as the governor of the Reserve Bank. And so the Knight-Wheeler signatures was that combination. You're getting to the stage now where the notes, if you buy them at auction and what next, are becoming less expensive. The earlier ones that we've seen before, to get those notes in nice condition, you pay fairly good money for. It's starting to get to the price where people like me could afford. In 77, Wheeler was replaced by John Stone. So you get your Knight-Stone combination. This is the second last dollar note that was printed. This combination went from 77 to 82, so it's 5 years. In 82, Johnson was replaced Knight, so you get your Johnson-Stone combination, and that's the biggest. That's the number, the name combination you see on most $1 notes. In 1984, the $1 note was replaced by the $1 coin. So the 82 to 84 is the Johnson stone. Whenever you see bundles of nice, crispy new $1 notes, especially the hundreds, you get the hundreds with the mint wrapping still on them, they're nearly always Johnson stone. You very, very seldom see the night stone combinations, but they are out there. In '85, Bernie Fraser replaced John Stone as the Secretary of the Treasury. So your Johnson Fraser signatures were there. So there's no $1 anymore, it's $2 and the $100 note had come in. When $100 note come in this one? Yeah, the $100 note actually came in during the Johnson, during the Johnson Stone signature. The $100 note was introduced in '84. About the same time, the $1 note was replaced. So $1 disappeared, 100 came in. So again, sign of inflation. So there's the Johnson Fraser signatures. In '88, we got the special first of the polymers. It was a commemorative. I guess this shouldn't fit in when we're talking about paper notes, but it is in there. So it's the introduction of the polymers for the bicentenary. So it's during the Fraser, Johnson Fraser signatures on it. Like that. This is quite interesting because in '85, Bernie Fraser moved from the Secretary of the Treasury to the Governor of the Reserve Bank. He moved from one. So his signatures were still on the note, but in a different location. He became the first. And during the period that he was changed, he must have taken a brief holiday in between doing the two jobs, because in '85, the deputy the governor of the Reserve, M.J. Phillips, filled the role, and the Phillips, the Phillips Fraser was still Secretary of the Treasury, and Phillips was the deputy governor. Was only in for a short time, and it was only on these two notes. So the numbers produced were not very many. You can see the $20 EVJ to EYD, and $50 YXJ to YYU. So there weren't very many issued in that short period. Yes, sir. Surprisingly, these notes are not overly expensive. I would have thought, they would have been harder to get, but they're not that much more. But as far as I can see, since we've had a Reserve Bank, it's the only time the Deputy Governor of the Reserve Bank has had his signature on our notes. That's a bit of history and trivia. Go on. In '89, Higgins became the Secretary of the Treasury, and Bernie Fraser became Governor of the Reserve Bank. Maybe those notes should have been the other, before the other one. The Fraser Higgins was used from '89 to '90, so again, it wasn't an overly large period, but there were quite a few notes produced in that period. And one with the $100 notes. If you collect by signatures, I think there's only 3, 4 different signature combinations on the $100 notes before polymers come in. Because we're talking 89, 90 now, and we're nearing the era of the polymer. '91, A.S. Cole became Secretary of the Treasury. The Fraser-Cole signature combination was used in 91 and 92. The first $5 polymer note was issued in 92 during this period. And then we go to the changeover. So, in 91, Cole became Secretary of the Treasury, Fraser, so it's Cole Fraser. And we had the first of the $5 polymers coming in. So that note replaced that note. You may remember these early $5, they were a lighter color to the ones that were changed very soon after. And the polymer prefixes were AA00 to AB19, so it's AA00, AA01, AA02, etc., all the way up to 99, and then AB00 to 19. So there's quite a few of them were issued. The changeover sort of continued. Cole was replaced by Evans in 93. And I'm sort of digressing a bit, but the changeover in 92, the $5 polymer was brought in, and every year thereafter another denomination. So 92 was 5, 93 was 10, 94 was 20, 95 was 50, and the 96 was the $100 became a polymer note. So 95 was the last year of the paper 100. So we had decimal paper notes for 30 years, from 66 to 95. And that's a fairly short period, but there's quite a bit of sort of history that went with them. These ones were Fraser Evans, and the Fraser Evans notes were still on the paper 20 and 50. And these were the other Fraser Evans, and this was the last 100 that was issued was still Fraser Cole. So they didn't make any $100 notes, print any $100 paper notes for a good 3 or 4 years. So the last $100 paper note, I think, no, that was Higgins. It was Higgins Fraser and then Cole's Fraser the year after. So Higgins Fraser signatures used to 91, and Cole's Fraser became 91 to 94 on the $100 notes, or 95. Yeah, 91 to 95. So that's my little talk on decimal paper notes. Another day I'll give you a talk on the rest of the polymers. But as I've mentioned before, there are certain polymer notes to look for, to see if you can find now while you can get them at a reasonable price. And they, like, this is a talk I gave at the conference. They are the 2019 issue. The circumstances relating to that polymer being rare was the fact that Scott Morrison thought that he was going to lose the 2019 election to Bill Shorten. All the polls had him going there, and in his own mind, he must have thought the time was up, because Phil Gaetjen, who was his chief of staff, he moved to Secretary of the Treasury in late 2018. So he could see and Gaetjen became Secretary of the Treasury in 2018, replacing John Fraser. Lo and behold, ScoMo wins. Okay, only by one vote perhaps, but he still won it. And so he wanted Phil Gaetjen back as his chief of staff, because Gaetjen knew him and knew his thought process, and they worked well together. So Gaetjen was only Secretary of the Treasury for less than a year, and he came back. So we get the first Gaetjen signatures on the $20 notes in 2019. So there's two different lots of signatures on 20. You have Phil Lowe and John Fraser on some $20 notes in 2019, and they're the hard one to get. The 2019 Lowe Fraser, I should have meant, well, I'm not on polymers, but from 92 the $5 cut over, 93 the $10 polymer came in, and with the $10 polymer they put the year of issue on the note. So instead of being 00, it was a year that was issued, and so it was issued in 93, 92, 93. So that if you're wanting to know what year your polymer notes were issued, just look at the first two numbers. That's the year it was issued. So in 2019, if we're looking at the new $20 notes that are coming out, the first two numbers after the prefixes is 19, the year of issue. And then the notes that start with 00 or 01, the fourth numbers on, they're the ones with the John Fraser signature, and they're the ones that are hard to get, because each of those notes, there's only about 100 and something thousand of each prefix on. It's not many. And then Gaetjen comes in, and you get 10 million of each prefix, so it's a lot. Also, with the new design notes, our notes used to have 1 million of each prefix, but ever since the new $5 polymer note in 2016, there's 10 million of each prefix. So the spread of numbers has increased. What else about Aussie notes? Yeah, and so Gaetjen was the Secretary of the Treasury. They started producing the new $100 notes with Gaetjen's signature in 2019, even though the new $100 weren't issued for circulation until 2020. They started in 2019 with Phil Gaetjen's signature on. So if you're ever looking for $100 notes, and I mean, we don't often see $100 notes because we deal with 50s most of the time. You never get a $100 note out of an ATM. But the latest $100 note, starting with the 19, is the harder one to get. So the one starting with the 20, there's probably about 30 to 1 that you see them.
To which one?
They're not easy to get. I've been looking for years, and I think I've got about 6.
six of which one? Sorry, which $100 note? Which $100 bills? The one that you put six of?
2019.
2019, and then what are the others?
The other one is the $20 bill,
No, the $100. Which one is the common $100 note?
2019. The one starting with 19.
Oh,
Hello, George. Glad you could make it. Just finished my talk. Timing is good. That is all I can say on Australian banknotes. I never collected star notes because they were just too expensive for my pocket. And I sort of think to myself, oh well, it's just another number, and I don't collect numbers.
And were they all made in Craigieburn?
Yeah, all made in Craigieburn. With the banknotes, don't know if you've been to the Reserve Bank, but they have a museum at the Reserve Bank, and you can view the process that they go in printing. When they print the notes, it's like when they print stamps. You know, you can buy a sheet of stamps and you get like 10 by 10. Well, the banknotes are printed similar, except bigger. And there's usually 25 or 35 banknotes on a sheet, and then they cut them up. So they print this sheet of 5 by 5 or 5 by 7 or whatever on it. And then they go through the next process of, I think, putting the signatures and the numbers on, the black bits down there, and they're printing them. And when they print them, it's AA0001, and the next note next to it is AB0001 and AC001. So they're all printed on a sheet. If you look at the prefixes on the polymer notes, I'd say, oh, that's an awful lot, you know, A to E. But the second letter on it only goes as far as K. So it's AA to AK and BA to BK. K is the last number, so there's 11 notes with each of the A prefixes and B prefixes, etc. So they usually print about 44, 45 or there. And so it's not that hard to get all the prefixes. You know, there's usually about 45 different prefixes, but some of them there are more. But so when I started collecting the new $5 note by prefixes, it was fairly easy. I've got all the prefixes of the new $5 notes. They're pretty easy to get. And when the new $5 note came in, they were really pushing them. So you got them from everywhere, and there was new $5 and the old $5 disappeared pretty quickly. And as a result, it was pretty easy to find the different prefixes on them. But if you look now, the $5 notes are all pretty grubby. And a lot of the different, they no longer start with 16. You can see the 20s coming in, you know, they start with number 20. And supposedly, according to the Reserve Bank, there should have been some $5 that were issued in 2019, but I've never seen them in circulation yet. That, ladies and gentlemen, is all I can tell you about collecting Australian decimal notes, and I'm happy to try and answer any questions anyone might have.
CV, no idea, is that worth looking at?
Let's have a look.
Let's just untumble it.
There's no need to photograph them, I'll just scan them.
Oh, okay.
That'll save you some trouble. Yeah, the other thing that changed with the new notes is they now have the serial numbers on one side and signatures on the other. Oh, that's a good one. No, it's not. Sorry, it's the Fraser that's the good one. The Phil Gaughan signature at the bottom. That's the common one. Now, as I was saying, yes, when you look at the number, you can say it's CE19, which is the year it was issued, 07. But the hard one to get is the 0001.
So which one, sorry?
So that one's still just a run of the mill.
So if you look at the top, the prefix is CE, and then the number of the note is 19, which is the year it was issued, and then 07, this one is. But the notes we really want to look for are not 07, it's 00 or 01. That's the hard note, and if you ever find it in nice condition, put it aside because it's going to be the scarce note to...
Even though it's a 19, it's still just a run of the mill.
It's the wrong signature.
I tried.
You might have mentioned also that the numbering out changed from Gothic font to ECMA.
Yeah. In which notes? Not all of them.
Yeah, no.
The font style in some of the notes, when you look at the fonts down there, in some notes when they were printing them, they changed the font style. So there are different fonts on the notes.
The early ones were Gothic,
Yeah.
the later ones were this. I think it's
And
ECMA.
there were some notes that had both with the signatures.
That's right. And what was interesting at the IMS meeting was the fact that they were showing their favourite banknotes, and Stephen showed two $1 notes, and I thought, oh yeah, that's, this is going to be interesting. Anyway, they were Phillips Randall $1 consecutive star notes.
Wow.
Which came in his first paper.
I mean, a star note is so hard to get, but to get consecutive, even Phillips Randall, If it's Coombs Randall, it would have been even better.
Well, the Phillips Randall star notes,
Yeah.
they only, the 20s are the only ones that have the star notes. And I can remember doing a cash count out of the Bank of New South Wales Leichhardt many moons ago, and came across 3 of them. But I really had to think twice about swapping $60 over for, but I did.
Why wouldn't you?
Well, because $60 was bloody lot of dough.
Yeah, but the stars are worth so much more.
Yeah, but it wasn't such a big deal back then. You know,
Yeah, you look at it today.
they weren't in mint condition back then.
No. We have a ANS member who collected notes, a Brisbane member, now deceased unfortunately, called Merv Meads. And Merv was a good banknote collector. He was a far better banknote collector than me. And he collected star notes. And they were looking for, say, how many do you have? And I think he had every star note that was issued, because they were getting the star notes by signatures and also by denomination. And there weren't stars that were issued for everything, you know. So sometimes they obviously printed these $1 stars, and when they had to replace an earlier signature, it went in. But I believe there were 16 different star notes combinations that you could get. Merv had them all. I don't have one. I didn't want to spend the money. I believe in collecting from circulation if I can, you know. Knowing the information and looking.
Did Merv get any from circulation?
I don't know. I think he must have looked. I don't know. But unlike our friend here who got 3 from circulation, and the 20s, I mean, like you were saying, $20 was a lot of money in those days.
Sure was.
Well, it's a week's wage in the 60s. Yeah. Were you a teller in those days, were you, or how did you come across
No,
it?
I was a manager's assistant back then. We did cash counts on, tellers had cash counts regularly.
And I guess you guys would have swapped every pound note, or in those days the pound notes were so common you didn't bother.
No, no, you didn't see.
Yeah, you know, yeah, I often think if you're a bank teller and you see all this stuff coming in, hey, that one doesn't go out again. You know, it goes in my pocket and I'll put some money
Well, I
in.
did that with the round 50-cent pieces. Whenever they came in, I swapped those over.
At the last, no, I won't mention this, but yeah, you occasionally see nice notes and things, and these days you don't see paper notes anymore, hardly ever. Occasionally at my stamp fair, when people come in with their stamps that they want to get rid of, they usually have some coins and banknotes and things. I usually end up buying them, and I mean, I will pay them a fair price if it's a rare note. You know, I'd give them the more or less what I consider what the dealers would buy it for. So, okay.
And in
But,
Indonesia, you occasionally get people coming up to you, the wholesalers in coins and paper money, and they occasionally give me paper Australian notes to take back here because they know I'm coming back here to change the Reserve Bank or just my banking.
Yeah,
So there's a little bit still cropping up in places.
yeah, still a bit circulating, but
Yeah,
not
still
much.
in Indonesia.
And the real grubby notes, well,
Yeah, the trouble.
nobody really wants
Yeah.
the really poor notes, and even nobles, they take some of those really grubby ones and twos and change them at the Reserve Bank. So, you know, they're just not worth keeping because nobody wants them, so you're never going to dispose of them. Anyway, thank you one and all. I think I covered everything, didn't I? Yes, I had to get that $20 Coombs, Randall, just for this talk.
There's aeronauts and all that. Aeronauts.
Yeah, error notes. I used to collect banknotes by type. British colonial banknotes, pre-Queen Elizabeth. I had a very, very nice collection of early notes. But like I do with most of my collections, I build them up and then off they go. Right, has anyone got anything else they'd like to show? Recent acquisitions or anything? Yeah, come on in. Come in, Spinner. Right, Frank, over to you.
Well, I've taken a slightly different tack to Rod.
Funny money.
I just simply started keeping a few. I thought, oh, well, these are the notes of the day. They'll probably go out of fashion, so I'll keep them for future reference. So I've got no particular signature or actual date issue or whatever. But when this one come up, I thought, oh, just for the heck of it, I'd see what the different signatures and maybe the prefixes, what sort of effect they have on the notes. And by trusting Renix, we've got these figures, so how accurate they are or not, I haven't got a clue, so just bear with me. But the first ones I got is the $1. Just to show the difference, the first one with the prefix DGJ, it was a Johnson Stone, which is issued in 1982, and in about uncirculated condition, apparently at the moment it's worth about $100. You know, as I say, whether these figures are correct or not, I don't know.
If you were trying to sell it at a dealer's,
Yeah.
you'd probably get less than 50% of that.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm saying, so yeah, just going. And that just in comparison, the DKS, which is only worth $10. So, you know, just what it shows the differences.
Why was the DGJ worth 100? Was it the first signature of that?
Oh, that's right, I didn't
combination?
bother with that at all, I just looked up and, you know, with that prefix, that condition, whether it's a first or not.
Well, it would sound like it was, because usually, because people collect by first and last,
Yeah.
the first and last are always worth more than the rest
General,
of them.
yeah.
And if that one was worth 100 and the other one's only worth 50, I would say it must be the
Well,
first,
I just
first
asked about
signature.
how much you trust Renix and whatever.
No, Renix are pretty good.
Then the next one, of course, is the $2. The HTB, which was in 1976, with a Night Wheeler. It's what I consider very fine. These are my gradings, with how good they are too, is another matter.
It's very nice.
But
yeah.
I call it a very fine. It says it's worth $40. The JZH, which was issued in '83 for the same $2 note, in extra fine, $175. So just
And that one was issued a lot earlier. HT.
but as I say, it was just simply a matter of at the time off. I could afford to put that aside, so I've just put it aside as an example of the notes. And moving on to the $5.
Night Wheeler.
Night Wheeler, both in '76, and they're very similar. You've got the NSS at $65. It's about uncirculated, but then the QCL, which is uncirculated, $50. So it's sort of a little bit reverse to what you'd expect.
There's an example of the different fonts on the numbering.
Yeah,
Go to the one on the left, move the one over. Right, that's the Gothic numbering.
yeah.
And see the $2 behind it, the contrast?
Yeah, oh,
Right,
right.
put them together, right? No, the five.
The 5 and the 2.
Yeah.
Well,
Can you
look
see
the same
the
to me, but
You can't see the difference
Not
between
really.
the 5 and the 2.
not really that much.
Time to go to Specsavers.
No, I've just had a bit cataracts out, so I'm still adjusting. Then a bit of a jump with the, what have I done here? Oh yeah, then we changed over to the slightly different designs and what have you, with the showing the Queen and that. The AA36, which was issued in 1992, is about $50 in uncirculated condition, and the 1995 is about $55. So there's very little difference in those for whatever reason. You've got the slightly different colours and the difference in the 5 on the note itself.
When the Evans-Fraser signature came in after the Coles-Fraser, they came in on notes of that colour. There was a very short run on them. So this $5 note, this colour, there's two signature combinations, those two signature combinations. So you can find some Evans-Frasers on that style note.
Right. Well, as I say, my collection is simply a matter of, it's a $5 note. I can afford to put that aside this week, so that's what I've done, without any regard to its significance. Then we move on to the $10. The SDU, which was issued in 1967, in what I call fine, is $95.
Now that's a good note to get, the Coombs Randall. So that's a harder note because of that signature combination,
At that age,
because of the signature.
all right. Or maybe that's why it's $95. And the SRG one, which is issued in 68, that's only worth $20 for the same, what I consider to be the same condition.
Yep. So yeah,
So-
that's it. That is the signatures playing the difference. Coombs Randall on all notes are hard to get. It's a very limited number.
Then we have the,
Polymer bicentenary.
which I think you're all pretty well aware of, the polymer note. The only reason I've sort of put that in is because it's the, as
It's
far as I'm aware, it's the only note that's ever had a date printed on it.
No, I think there are other commemoratives that have it when you bought them in packs and things,
What,
but not circulating notes.
right,
You won't find the date on the note that was in circulation.
right,
You only find the date on this one,
that one,
and
and
this
Well, I
one
think
would
it's-
have an AA prefix on
yeah,
it.
no, it's not the AA. I'll check that.
Yeah, so it's got the AA, whereas the notes that went in circulation were all ABs.
Apparently at the time, I think the idea was, oh, these will be absolutely treasures, but you can still pick them up, you know, $15,
Everyone's got them.
$20, so they just haven't gone anywhere price-wise.
Yeah, everyone has them.
Yeah, well, I've got probably half a dozen of them myself, but, so that they're not that, they haven't reached that significance that I think was expected.
No. It's the same with the coloured $2 coins that everyone's paying stupid prices for.
Yeah.
They're never going to be that rare because there's plenty of them.
This is going to upset you. There's a Coombs Randall, 67.
Very nice.
According to my reckoning again, it's in fine condition, $600, which is, and for no other particular reason than I just at the time had $20. I think I'll put that aside. It's a bit different.
No, that's good. That's very nice.
But then you get the same prefix with the Phillips Randall. It's only worth $100. So it's quite a difference in those signatures.
XBS is the last of the prefixes, so the Phillips Coombs Randall was XBQ, XBR, XBS. So yeah, that's yeah.
And,
Phillips Randall's also hard to get. They're not that common.
make me an offer. Moving on to the 50s, we had Fraser Cole, they were issued in 1991. The WFG was $150 in about uncirculated.
Mm-hmm.
Then the YDD was issued 79.
Stone.
I got that at $225 in about uncirculated. For some strange reason, around that period, the lettering was sort of out of sequence. The Y was issued before the W. I don't know why. If you look at Renix again, they seem to have worked sort of backwards for a little while.
Well, the Knight Stone is an earlier signatory, so the YDD, yeah.
Then on the $100, which is so Cole Fraser, issued in 1992, and I got that at $230. Commonly known as the Grey Ghost at the time. Just simply, well, as I believe it, simply because of the colouring. And then just as a, where the heck is it? What have I done with it? Got a $3 one here somewhere. Or?
Oh, you had it earlier on, the Billy McMahon.
Yeah. I think she got that. Bear with me for a second. Oh, there it is. Yeah, this, no signatures, no dates, no prefixes, but worth quite a bit. No, all you have is a chief advisor. There's no secretary to the treasury or chairman of the board or anything like that at all.
But this one doesn't even have a signature, it's just
No,
got his
that's
name.
what I'm saying. I don't know how you go trying to cash one.
Well, you wouldn't, because they're funny money.
Okay.
There.
The only other ones I have is
Chief advisor to Tricky Dicky Nixon.
the only other ones that I've got a couple of is sequential numbers, you know, where you might get 3 or 4 running numbers. But apart from that, my only reason for collecting is they're of the day and they might be worth something eventually. Quite a few others that I've got that are just not. They're just, as you said, they're take them to the treasury and just simply change them over.
Never do that.
Okay, leave them there.
Thank you. And the polymer. Right. Any other recent acquisitions or items of interest you want to show? Hey, Morris.
A recent acquisition. Generally, these type of medalettes were issued by local country towns after soldiers came back from the First World War. This appears to be issued before the soldier actually went overseas, because it says on that side, E.F. Bowman, Volunteer, Australia, 1916. On the reverse, it says for humanity, and if anyone knows what this means, be appreciated. It has Herber 1-RIV on land. It's on a sterling silver base and by Angus and Coote Limited. It's all engraved by hand, and that's all I really know about it. It appears to have a soldier in First World War dress uniform. Any comments? Interesting, but I just don't know what Herber 1-RIV actually means. Thank you.
You're always turning up unusual things, haven't you, time to time, aren't you?
Yeah, I haven't seen something else.
Is it a silver piece?
Yeah. Angus and Coote.
No.
It's quite well engraved.
Remember me in your book. Yeah, don't get on with that, that's one, yeah, okay.
I've got 3 items that I'd like to show. They're only some of them have been in my possession for a long time. It's a pity that David May is not here, because I would have asked him to definitely identify this one more fully. This is apparently a piece of an escalin. It's the denomination that I'm not sure about. The area where it comes from is Brabant. Brabant is a province in modern state Belgium, and apparently issued for use in Antwerp under the rules of co-archdukes Albert and Isabel, or Elizabeth on the coin.
You made sure of that.
That's
So-
Belgium.
Belgium, modern day Belgium, but it was called Brabant, that particular area. And the Antwerp, most likely Antwerp Mint, and I would have wanted confirmation of somebody who may be more proficient in that area than I am. These are all items which I purchased mainly from Noble and other auctions in Australia. This is, I think, a Mughal Indian piece, which I have to do more research on as well. So in the old days, I used to buy these kind of lots for want of something better. And the latest one, which is this would probably qualify as a recent acquisition. This is one of the earliest items of political funny money, but an Indian one with an Indian rupee 1920, silver rupee on one side, and an image of the Kaaba in Mecca at that time. So they had some kiosks around it which are no longer there, but the Kaaba is still there, and this is in Masjid Al-Haram, which is behind it. So this is, I think, quite interesting if for various reasons. And the authority, which was where it was used under, is printed on the back, so that might be an interesting item. So I've seen one other has been in a Noble auction, and one other has been overseas, both in poorer grade than my example. And I've had that in my possession for approximately a year now, so that is relatively recent. So the only thing is it's a little bit damaged on the bottom, but otherwise it's in quite nice condition considering it's 103 years old. So the Bengal Caliphate Committee, that was one of the committees which was discussing also for an independent India, but they didn't really want to announce it as such. So, and they weren't associated with Mahatma Gandhi or anybody else. And they were all numbered. So they were basically vouchers which were issued to those that were contributing towards the cause.
It'd be more with Jinnah than Gandhi.
Yes, but Calcutta is very close to Bangladesh, right?
Yeah.
So Bangladesh, Calcutta's got a very large Muslim population.
Came East Pakistan.
And
yeah.
yes, came, and it's within 20 k's of what became East Pakistan, and it was all British India in those days. So I thought, wow, good purchase.
Interesting.
So I didn't let that one go, even though I don't collect India or anything like that, but I do collect paper money. So, but not this. But it's interesting to have. And I tried to send it to PMG to have it graded, and they sent it back to me in a body bag. So this note cannot be encapsulated in a PMG holder. For more information about the notation on the front, please visit www.pmgnotes.com. No holder. Oh, if it was a Disney note, then it probably would have been graded, but certainly historic enough. That's it.
Let Grant photograph them.
Yes, thanks.
And
Well, did they give you a refund or?
No.
George, you got
But I
some?
tried to pass on a lot of expensive notes through them for grading, and they've only caught me on 2 or 3 of them. So you usually have to put on the price, and then you pay the grading fee accordingly. So the grading fee can be very expensive on high value notes. So
What are you saying? They charge more
they charge
for
more
grading
for high value notes. Well, they have to get it from somebody. They're not a charity, so.
Right, George has got something here.
The one commemorative coin, banknote that we had in decimal currency was 1988, the bicentennial.
Yeah. Frank showed one just now. Yeah.
You've just seen one.
Yeah.
It came out also in a commemorative presentation folder,
With the date.
and these notes were all AA numbers, and on the obverse they were dated on the 16th of
George?
January.
Move over to this side so that people can see the info on the screen. I'll move my stuff away from here and you can put your stuff there.
I don't know if it was Saz's or
Any others?
The beauty of our notes is that they're numbered, and also the value of them is written. In Parliament House there was a discussion on having another language on our banknotes. During the tourist invasion by the Japanese in the 80s, where they were using their own currency in Queensland, virtually in the shops, for two reasons. How many of you can read or speak Chinese, Mandarin or Cantonese or Japanese, Thai, or know their figures? Well, these people have the same problem when they come here. They're from different backgrounds, and that's the problem. Anyhow, we're not going to have an Oriental script on our banknotes. But advertising is an industry. Why not advertise on the banknotes? Wouldn't it be nice to have a McDonald's hamburger or whatever they call the big ones, or Kentucky Fried? But using the notes, people try to advertise. One of these was what looks like a $2 note. They made it into a $3 note, and Soul Colour, which is a medicinal outlet, a chemist shop or something. You probably have seen the American $1 million note, which is a fantasy note that came out, and but people, the INS in Queensland decided to come out with their version.
QNS, yeah.
The $2 was in green, also telling you 23 years of the ANS existence. And what looks like a $20. Now the craze on some of these notes is to have them in running numbers, a sequence of running numbers, and in our INS auction some 4 or 5 years ago, the notes from the AA numbers or the bicentennials sold for quite a large amount, but they were a sequence of three notes. Why? Because you'll only get them in folders. The folders were sold to the public in random. They were not in running numbers. I managed to score a few when a banknote dealer, John Pettit, went bankrupt, and with his lots and a few others, I have 8 consecutive numbers of the 1988, the first polymer.
The AA numbers or AB numbers?
Given?
AA numbers or AB numbers?
Yeah.
This one in the pack, you had the numbers, running numbers?
Yeah, just take them out of the packet, and it's a one-off. It's like a 1930 penny variety, you know. The thing I have here is lots of $10 Johnson and Fraser $2 notes. The last ones. All uncirculated and all in running numbers. A very nice thing to put away. They're still reasonably cheap. There was a bloke at the coin fair at Petersham Town Hall, was selling 10 of them for over $200. I came there with a bundle of a couple of hundred, and I was only selling them for half that price.
He didn't want to buy them off you?
There's a few here if you're interested. But you would be surprised at the number of people that I've met who haven't heard or haven't seen a $1 or $2 note. The $2 came out of circulation in '89 and the $1 in '78. The $1 coin came out in '74, but the notes were still in circulation. I'd like to see more commemorative notes. I know they're confusing. I've seen people look at them and see if they're a genuine item or not, especially tourists or migrants. But that was a one-off, and to me it's quite enough. I'll leave it at that, Nathan.
Thank you, George.
Maybe we could have welcome to country printed on one of the 400 Aboriginal languages.
Might be on the new $5.
He hasn't happened to South Africa afterwards.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, unless we have some other items of interest, Meeting is over. Thank you for your attendance.
Next month?
Next month the meeting is here, and the topic is coronations.